Well, the 2024 NFL season is in the books, and now we look towards the playoffs. There was a few different clinching scenarios going into Week 18, and now we have the full bracket with the schedule, and I'm going to break down my full predictions for the playoffs and what teams I think could be a dark horse and what teams I think that are essentially going to be one and done. So the Commanders ended up getting the 6th seed with the win over Dallas, and the Packers fall to the 7th seed. And then the Steelers fall all the way now to the 6th seed, and the Broncos ended up taking the 7th seed with a win over Kansas City. So we're going to get into this and break this down. So the schedule is set, and I'm not necessarily going to go through this in the order that the games are going to be played. I'm just going to go through this in the order of the bracket that I'm looking at. So with the first matchup, you're going to have the 7th seed Broncos heading to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Yeah, this one I don't need to spend too much time on. I think the Broncos are going to lose. Maybe this is a game that ends up being closer than it should, but the Broncos, Bo Nix is a rookie quarterback. He's done great this year, but Buffalo I think they're the second best team in the AFC, and I think this should be a pretty easy win for Buffalo, to be honest with you. The Broncos I think exceeded expectations this year. I know a guy who's a Broncos fan, and he said at the beginning of the year, like 6 or 7 wins I think would be was what he was expecting, and anything more than that would be basically a huge win. So them making the playoffs, and I think it's the first time they've made the playoffs since 2015, I believe 2016. Like the Broncos hadn't made the playoffs in a long time. So if you're a Broncos fan, you got to be pretty happy that your rookie quarterback looked good and is taking you to the playoffs, even though you're the 7th seed and you're probably going to get bounced by Buffalo. Good season for the Broncos. So I have the Bills winning and advancing to the divisional round. So next up, we got the 6th seed Steelers heading to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Yeah, the Steelers, man, this year has just been a weird year for them. They get Russell Wilson on like a 1-year, $1 million vet minimum contract, and then you also sign Justin Fields, trade for him during the offseason, and they got rid of Kenny Pickett, Mitchell Trubisky. Their quarterback room, they upgraded tremendously, I think, and this was a team that I knew going into this year was probably going to make the playoffs. I mean, you got Mike Tomlin, again, who doesn't have a losing record, but, I mean, if you're a Steelers fan, you're kind of stuck in this, you're good, but you're not great, where you're just always making the playoffs as, a wild card team, and it's got to be frustrating because I don't know how many Steelers fans trust this team to go far in the playoffs. So they're going into the playoffs on a 4-game losing streak. They lost to the Bengals on Saturday night, and yeah, you drew the short straw because now you got to go to your division rival, Baltimore, and I don't like the Steelers' chances here, to be honest with you. I think that the Steelers are going to lose, and I think the Ravens could honestly beat any team if they stay hot. I think the Ravens are a very, very dangerous team. It just kind of depends upon how they play. So yeah, I think the Ravens are going to win this. If you had to ask me a final score, I'd probably say 27-20. I don't think the Ravens will put up 40 points, but I don't trust the Steelers. And to be honest with you, Mike Tomlin just seems like in these situations lately, he just can't. They haven't won a playoff game, I think, in 6 or 7 years. So yeah, I don't see really a scenario where the Steelers win. Of course, they could. It's football and it's division. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Steelers pull an upset, but yeah, I think Baltimore advances to the divisional round. So, and then the last AFC game, you got the Chargers heading to Houston to play the Texans. So this game is honestly, I think, out of the 3 AFC games, this game is the closest. I have a hard time picking who I think is going to win this. This game could be a coin flip. The Texans have not really lived up to expectations this year. I think, to play devil's advocate, I think the Texans' hype got a little bit out of hand. I think people needed to relax on them a little bit. I think they had a great year last year, but they're still a young team. Quarterback who's only in his 2nd year, and I think the Texans will be fine. But I think some of the expectations got a little bit out of hand. And then the Chargers, you got Jim Harbaugh in his first year with the Chargers, and they're a good team, but it's just they're one of those teams in the playoffs. Are you afraid of them? I wouldn't be. But the Texans also, you lose Stephon Diggs, you lose Tank Dell. It's like their injuries have just been terrible this year. I'll go with the Texans just because I think I trust them more playing at home. But this game, I honestly think is a coin flip. So I'll go with the Texans to get the win here, but I'm really not honestly super confident in that pick. And of course, the Chiefs and the Lions both have first round byes, but now let's move to the NFC. And you got the 7th seed Packers, and they have to head to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. Oh boy. Now, is there that part of me that wants to see the Packers play the Eagles to get revenge for week 1? Absolutely. But the performance that I saw yesterday from the Packers makes me realize that the Packers are going to get smoked. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. But it sucks because this team has so much potential. I know they're a young team, but I don't feel like we can keep using that excuse. Like, I think it's on the coaching. And yeah, you come out to the Bears, you lay an egg in a game that I think was a get-right game, get some confidence going into the playoffs, and you just completely shit the bed. And now you got to go to Philly, who is one of the hardest places to play. I mean, that crowd is crazy. So, yeah, I have the Packers losing to the Eagles. As much as it sucks to say, the Packers are my preseason pick to win the Super Bowl, and it's frustrating because I see the talent, but the talent's not being utilized, and this team just makes too many dumbass mistakes. So, yeah, I have the Packers losing to the Eagles. Could be a blowout. I don't know. It could be close. Maybe the Packers come to play. Maybe the Packers win. That would be great, but I don't see it. So, I have the Eagles winning and advancing to the divisional round. All right, and then this is going to be a fun game. You got the Commanders, who are the 6th seed, and they head to Tampa to play the Buccaneers. So the Buccaneers have had kind of a roller coaster of a season. It started out good, and then they lost like 4 games in a row when Mike Evans got hurt, and then Godwin got hurt. They had that loss to the Ravens, and they came back and they won their division, and Baker Mayfield's been playing good, and I like the Buccaneers, so I'm kind of excited to see what they can do. And then the Commanders, one of the teams that I don't think people had a lot of expectations for going into the season with a rookie quarterback, and Jaden Daniels has been phenomenal. Good chance he wins Rookie of the Year, and the Commanders have been they've been fun to watch this year. I mean, that Hail Mary game against the Bears, sorry Bears fans, you know, they've been a fun story, and I feel like they're a little bit like last year's Packers, where they weren't expected to really do much, and they sneak in because they had a good quarterback. And yeah, this is going to be a fun game. I honestly don't really care who wins this, but I'm going to pick the Buccaneers because I trust Baker, I think, a little bit more in the playoffs. Jaden Daniels is still a rookie, and this is not a slight on the Commanders. The Commanders could definitely win this game, but Baker, I think, has a little bit more experience. And, Jaden Daniels is in his first year, so this is only going to improve for him. But I have the Buccaneers getting the win, but this is probably going to be a close game. So, again, could go either way. Any one of these games, obviously, could go either way because it's the NFL and things happen. But, yeah, I have the Buccaneers winning and advancing to the divisional round. And the last game on my bracket, which is ironically the last game of Wild Card Weekend, you have the Minnesota Vikings, who finished as the 5 seed after a loss to Detroit, a very bad loss to Detroit where everything was on the line. And they ended up as the 5 seed, and you have them heading to LA to play the Rams as the 4th seed. Oh boy, I'm also a Vikings fan as well as a Packers fan, and yeah, being a Vikings fan is just doom and gloom and heartbreak. So, with the season on the line yesterday, they completely just fell apart. Not saying the season was on the line, they're still in the playoffs, but like with what was on the line, that first round bye, home field advantage throughout the playoffs, you only have to win one game to get into the NFC Championship game, and they just completely laid an egg. And then you have to play a team like the Rams, who like every year seem like they're down and out, and then they just go on this run, and you have Matt Stafford and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, and it's just like this Rams team, when they get hot, can beat anybody. And the Rams team that I wouldn't want to play, even if I was like Detroit or Philly, because they're that dangerous. So yeah, And the Vikings already lost to the Rams this year. So, and ironically, the 2 losses the Vikings have this year were to the Lions and to the Rams, or up until the last week of the season, They lost back-to-back games against the Lions and the Rams to go 5-2. So, to be honest with you, I think the Rams are going to win this just because I know the Vikings and I know they're going to pull up my heartstrings and they're going to stab me in the heart. So, yeah, I'm going to have the Rams winning. The Rams are a very dangerous team, I think, when they are hot and Matt Stafford is on. And the Vikings obviously could win this, and I hope they do. I hope Sam Darnold has a get-right game because last night against the Lions, he was terrible. But yeah, I have the Rams winning and advancing to the divisional round. So both of my teams are going to get bounced in the first round. So now moving forward to the divisional round, you would have the Texans heading to Kansas City, and you would have the Ravens heading to Buffalo. So let's go through the AFC first. Texans, Chiefs. I don't need to spend much time on this. I don't think the Texans are going to go into Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs after the Chiefs had a first-round bye. And the Chiefs have a chance to three-peat. The Texans probably not going to win that game. Probably won't be a blowout, but pretty decisive win by the Chiefs. If I had to guess, it would be probably like a 27-14 game. So I have the Texans losing, and I have the Chiefs advancing to the AFC Championship game. And then you have the Ravens. They would be heading to Buffalo to play the Bills. This could be like one of the best playoff games of all time if it lives up to its expectations and this happens, because this could be really fun. I love the Bills. I think Bills fans are some of the best in the NFL, if not the best fans in the NFL, and I think they deserve a Super Bowl. And so I would definitely be cheering for the Bills, and that's nothing against the Ravens because I really like Lamar as well. But the Ravens won a Super Bowl back in like 2012, so I'd be rooting for the Bills, and I think the Bills get the win, although I'm not confident because the Ravens could go in to Buffalo and for sure win. They have second best running back in the league, but Josh Allen has been like Superman this year, and he's probably going to win an MVP, so I have the Bills winning against the Ravens. And unfortunately, Lamar, his playoff success and that thorn in his side, that narrative is not gonna it's not gonna end because people just like to throw shade at Lamar for some reason, even though he's a great player. And his playoff record is gonna keep getting brought up of like he can't win in the playoffs and all this ridiculous shit, but it's whatever. I mean, I think Lamar's resume and his career so far speaks for itself. He's phenomenal. And so whatever people want to say about Lamar, whatever, I think it's ridiculous, but yeah, I have the Bills winning. So then, moving to the NFC, you would have the Lions, and they would be playing the Rams as the 4th seed, and another rematch of last year's wild card weekend where Stafford went into Detroit and they didn't win. And then it was also week 1, right, of the season where the Rams went back to Detroit. Yeah, because they lost in overtime, I believe. So you'd have basically a rematch of a rematch, third game within a span of a year, heading to Detroit, where Detroit has the number 1 seed and basically like second best home field advantage behind, well, maybe third, depending upon where you want to put KC. KC might be number 1, but anyways, behind like Philly. The Lions fans are going to be loud. I actually have the Rams winning. I think at some point Stafford's going to get revenge on the Lions, and he's going to silence the Lions crowd. The Lions, other than that defense last night, which played awesome, and they shut the Vikings down in the red zone, they've been allowing a lot of points. And they allowed, 34 points to the 49ers? And I think the Rams could put up a lot of points against the Lions. But the Lions are just one of those teams, like, you kind of got to score 30-plus points with how decimated this defense is. And like I said, I know that sounds crazy because of how well their defense played last night. And if they play like that, like, they might be unstoppable. But I don't see them playing like that throughout the entire entirety of the playoffs. So I actually have the Rams getting the upset and beating the Lions and heading to the NFC Championship game. And then you would have the Eagles hosting the Bucs. Another game that don't need to spend too much time on. The Eagles are better. I think Jalen would be coming off, I don't know how bad he's injured. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Jalen Hurts and how he nurses that injury. But yeah, I have the Eagles beating the Bucs. I think the Bucs have a good run, but I think this is another rematch of last year's playoffs, where the Eagles went to Tampa and they got beat, and that Eagles team was just fell off a cliff. But the Eagles are phenomenal, and I think they're gonna beat the Bucs pretty handily. I really, really hope the Bucs win, but the Eagles, I think, are just too good. So that would mean AFC Championship game is again at Arrowhead, and it would be the Chiefs against the Bills. And again, I hate to say it because it seems like the Chiefs are to the Bills what the 49ers are to the Packers. They're just that team that you can never seem to get past. And I honestly don't see that changing. I really hope it does, and maybe it does. The Bills have been playing awesome, and the Chiefs, they're a great team, but you're like, how do you keep winning all these games? But you just know when the playoffs are going to turn it up. So I have the Bills losing, unfortunately, and I have the Chiefs advancing to the Super Bowl again. I truly think it's going to take a Herculean effort from Josh Allen or whatever team ends up playing the Chiefs to beat Patrick Mahomes, especially at Arrowhead. I mean, last year they proved the narrative of we can go on the road and win in the playoffs, and they did. And now they're back at home again in the loudest stadium in the world. I don't see them losing. And then the NFC Championship game, I got the Rams and the Eagles. This game I go back and forth on because I could see the Rams pulling an upset, truly, but I could also see the Eagles just being the better team, having the home field advantage, having Saquon Barkley, and just basically playing a better game and advancing to the Super Bowl. I'm going to be honest, I have the Rams winning. I have the Rams going on a run. This team is they scare me when they're hot. Like Matt Stafford and these receivers, I think they can beat anybody. And so I actually have the Rams being the dark horse in the playoff. I shouldn't say they're a dark horse because they won the Super Bowl a few years ago. But as a fourth seed, I guess, you could say them knocking off the 1 and 2 seeds. You could say that's a dark horse team. So I have the Rams advancing to the Super Bowl and playing the Chiefs, which takes us to New Orleans for Super Bowl 59, which would, if my bracket's correct, have the Chiefs and the Rams in the Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs win. I think the Chiefs three-peat, as much as it's going to piss a lot of people off. I do think it's a little bit funny how angry people get with the Chiefs. It seems like the hatred for the Chiefs is more than it was for the Patriots when Tom Brady was winning all those Super Bowls. I don't know. Maybe it's because the Chiefs have been more shoved down everyone's throat. So that could be why. But I find it hilarious just how absolutely unhinged people get when the Chiefs win. So I will kind of enjoy that a little bit. But yeah, I have the Chiefs beating the Rams in the Super Bowl to be the first ever three-peat. It's clear the NFL wants this. I'm not saying the NFL is scripted, but I think the NFL is pretty clear that the NFL wants the Chiefs to win with some of the calls you've seen this year. And they clearly are the golden boys of the NFL. And so, and that's not to say that they're just going to win because the NFL handed it to them. It's just I think this team is really good, and no matter how many fluke wins they have this year, they're still the Chiefs, and they're going to get into the playoffs, and they're going to play awesome like they did last year. That was the concern last year, was they were so bad throughout the year. Chiefs fans were freaking out, oh my God, this is doom and gloom, and then it's well, just wait till they get to the playoffs. They're the Chiefs. They have Andy Reid. They have Patrick Mahomes, and look what they did. So this year they're the 1 seed. They have a better record. It's they have... Path to the Super Bowl is never easy, but they have one of the easiest paths to a three-peat with home field advantage. And two teams, whether if it's the Ravens or the Bills, probably that are going to be in the AFC Championship game with them. Two teams they've already beaten multiple times in the well, have they beaten the Chiefs? I think they've only beaten the Ravens once in the playoffs, but they've beaten the Bills multiple times. So, yeah, I have the Chiefs winning Super Bowl 59, and people are going to freak out, and it's going to be hilarious. I actually do like the Chiefs because they used to come to River Falls for training camp. So my mom used to take us, and we used to get autographs. So I actually like the Chiefs since like 2005, 2006. So I'm not a bandwagoner. But yeah, we got autographs from like Tony Gonzalez, Priest Holmes, Trent Green. So I've liked the Chiefs since I was a kid. But do I still want them to win the Super Bowl over like the Bills? No, because I would like to see the Bills win one. But yeah, that's my bracket. I have the Chiefs winning and becoming first ever 3-peat champion. So